So I've done about 2,700 odd kilometers with this gear system. By the time this video gets uploaded, it'll be very close to 3,000. Not an overly long-term review, but certainly enough time to get very familiar with this EDS TX gear system. Probably the majority of you are watching this video because you are considering purchasing the Wheeltop gear system. You might be thinking, is it worth spending the extra to get the SRAM or Shimano gear system rather than the Wheeltop? Or perhaps you're wondering if the Wheeltop system is going to be a good upgrade for your rim brake or mechanical gear system. So let's answer those questions and heaps more. This Wheeltop gear system is your front derailleur, rear derailleur, the gear shifters, and if you're getting the disc brake version, the calipers and the hoses. So let's have a look at them individually. First of all, the shifters. The most common position you're going to find yourself in is when you're just riding normally along in a relatively straight line. So your hands are going to be tucked on the flat part of the lever body, leaving the pommel or that peak bit on the lever on the outside in front of your hands there. So straight on the lever like that. There's plenty of room on that lever hood for pretty much every size hand except for the largest of hands. So no problem about sizing there. All depends, of course, where you have your levers to on your bars. If you have them toward you a little bit more, which means you're going to be facing upwards, or you can have them down for aerodynamics, more straightforward. And that's a little bit different as well, so you'll turn your wrists a bit more. I've got these ones set pretty much in between those positions. Anyhow, very, very comfortable, nothing to complain about. For a more of an aero position, you'll come forward and bend your elbows and you'll put your hands on those pummels like that, and then you'll be in more of an aero position. And that's less comfortable, of course, than being in the recess on the lever hood body, but nevertheless, it's just the same as pretty much Shimano or SRAM levers anyhow, so no problem there. The biggest test for shifter body comfort, I find, is when you're climbing and sprinting. Sprinting on the hoods, of course, not unnecessarily on the drops. Now that's when you're going to be swaying your bike and your body a little bit too, so the lever body will be moving in your hands here. Now I find these absolutely fine, trying to keep a straight line as you can without wobbling all over the place. No problem whatsoever. Now with a lever body, quite often if a lever body is more of a square shape, then you'll feel those edges on the inside, on the out, it'll annoy your hands, but that's not the case with these Wheeltop shifters, they're just fine. For the actual size of this lever hood, where you hang on to, that's at the bottom of the dip here and back to the bar where the lever hood flap is there, is pretty much bang on feeling wise as Shimano Di2. So not the mechanical lever is a bit longer, but the Di2 is pretty much bang on the same size as this Wheeltop. Where the difference comes in is when you look down on it, the actual lever hood flap here on the Di2 comes back a little bit further on the bar by about 1/2 centimetre. So it may look and may even feel a little bit bigger because you may sit back a bit further as well on that lever hood. Gives you a little bit more space for the actual hood, but the body itself, comfort-wise, is exactly the same. So if you've got really, really big feet, say size 14 shoes, then chances are you've got really big hands. You may find that these ones will be a little bit too small, but other than that, for pretty much 99% of us, these levers for space are just fine. Also the width, that's this way across the lever hood, and the depth, that's down that way, are identical to Shimano Di2. With the gear paddles, two on the right hand side, one on the left hand side, when you push any of them in, nothing will happen until you push just that little bit extra, and you'll feel it, it clicks, and then that sends a signal to the rear derailleur or your front derailleur. So it stops accidental shifting, I find. So if your fingers are just dangling there, it's not going to accidentally shift. So you have to make a concerted effort to push it, and then it changes. It's not a hard push like with mechanical gears. In fact, I found with my pointer or my index finger on the larger paddle toward your fingers, I was just going flick, 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 and going up the gears one at a time if I want, no problem at all. With the paddle at the front, you can't do that because the other one's in the way. But with that back one there, I've got that for changing up the gears. I can just go flick, bang, and it's really, really good. In the beginning, for the first 4 or 5 rides, I found that I'd miss a gear every now and again because I just didn't press the pedal hard enough. So you'll probably find the same. It'll take a while to get used to the fact that you just push the lever rather than just touch it, and then it'll change gear. The gear pedals are almost identical to Shimano Di2. They've got little textured patterns on them. The one at the back has lines and the one at the front has little bumps or dimples on it. Also, the one at the back is recessed slightly in and the one at the front is slightly out. So without looking, not only can you feel the textured patterns, but you can feel that buttons are slightly different so you know where you are. The main difference between Shimano Di2 and this Wheeltop system is on the left-hand paddle, you've only got one on the Wheeltop, whereas there's two on the Di2 Shimano one. So you push this left one once and the derailleur shifts up at the front, push it again and the derailleur shifts down. Now you can configure these paddles any way you want. So you can have this larger paddle on the inside be your upshift and the one on the outside be down, or vice versa. In fact, you can even go further than that and have one of the paddle on this side go upshift and the one on your left-hand side go downshift, or vice versa, like on SRAM. And you can have this little button at the front be your front derailleur if you want. Whichever way you want, you can configure it in the app. Very nice. One problem you'll find if you ride in wintertime and you use thick full finger gloves is you can't feel where the gear pedals are, where you are. Medium thickness winter gloves, not too bad. No fingers, of course, that's fine. It's not an isolated problem. It'll happen to any gear system, so SRAM, Shimano, the whole lot. So be aware of that. Thick full finger gloves may not feel what's going on. Wheeltop hoods have textured lines on top, whereas the Shimano Di2s have a crosshatch pattern, and both don't have much on their sides. And with this side view, you can see how flush, clean and tidy the Wheeltop hood interfacing is. Even the brake lever has a more flowing look to it, maybe even more aerodynamic. These Wheeltop hoods are not as soft, sticky and supple as Shimano or SRAM lever hoods. However, I did not find them to be slippery in the wet. So these hoods are very firm on the shifter body. Unlike Shimano ones, over time they come loose, they start to slide around a bit and get sloppy, and that happens over time. These ones, after the last 3 to 4 months, they're still as good as new. Under the lever hood, there's little protrusions that stick into locating holes into the shifter body. This stops the hood from moving around and keep it in the right position, which is great, just like Shimano and SRAM. Now, none of them protrude out, none of them annoyed my hand. The lever hood body itself is not square, so you don't feel any edges, nice and rounded at the edges. Very comfortable. The rear derailleur. Now we'll start off with this because the rear derailleur is central to your gear system. The front derailleur has to talk to the rear derailleur and the shifters have to talk to the rear derailleur. Then the rear derailleur talks to your app on your device. So really in computer terms, the rear derailleur is the CPU or central processing unit of the whole system. Understanding that may help you set up your gear system as well. The most asked question for the rear derailleur and the front is how fast does it change compared to Shimano or SRAM? Okay, well there are two modes, casual mode and competition mode. Now we'll talk about casual mode first, which is mostly what you're going to have it in, because that way when you don't use your bike, the whole system turns itself off and saves you battery. Whereas in competition mode, the whole system stays on alert all the time, waiting for signals, so it'll waste your battery. So the casual mode is what you'll have it in pretty much 99 or 100% of the time. So rear derailleur, casual mode, changing down. And Wheeltop's faster by 0.6 seconds. Then changing back up. And Wheeltop's faster by 0.4 seconds. With the Wheeltop now in competition mode, changing down. Wheeltop's even faster now by 1.4 seconds. And then changing back up. The Wheeltop is faster by 1.3 seconds. Over to the front derailleur now, changing up. Shimano is faster by 0.2 seconds. Changing down. Again, Shimano's that fraction faster by 0.3 seconds. I haven't tested it because I haven't got a Durace system, but I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be very, very close to the speed of Durace. That's assuming Durace is using its own cassette and chain, which makes it all fast and nice and smooth as well. So if you're using a Shimano cassette and say a KMC chain, don't expect the engagement and speed to be as quick as with the Shimano chain. So ideally, set up the cassette with the appropriate chain. I'd recommend Shimano cassette with a Shimano chain, not just for speed, but also for smoothness of gear change. The other aspect of rear derailleur changing speed is not when you change one gear at a time, because they're all going to be pretty much the same, a microsecond difference. It's when you hold the gear paddle and it sweeps up across multiple sprockets at the rear. That's when you'll notice the speed, and Wheeltop is really good at doing that. For the front derailleur, the speed is just a smidge, just a hairbreadth slower than Di2. You'll hardly notice any difference anyhow. However, make sure your chainring, and this is the important thing, has these little rivets in them. See these rivets, these silver rivets here? These rivets assist the up change. That's going from your small chainring to the larger chainring. As the front derailleur swings outwards, it pushes the chain onto and steps up on the back edge of a rivet, and then it's an easy further outward move onto the teeth of the large chainring. So make sure you've got those rivets if you're using any aftermarket chainrings. Now my chainring here is getting a little bit worn out. It should be replaced. A couple of viewers noticed that on the previous videos about the Wheeltop. They said, your chainring needs replacing. Well, yeah, I've got a new chainring here. I've really got to put it on. However, in saying that, even though it's worn out, a good credit to the TX changer in the fact that it works really, really well, despite the fact that I need a new chainring. Now, as for changing under pressure or under torque, how's it go? Well, it's really not a lot to do with your rear derailleur, because your rear derailleur will move into the appropriate position really quickly, and it's up to the chain and your cassette to engage. So really under torque is dependent on your chain and cassette teeth. And it's the same with the front derailleur. Those little step rivets there will help the up change. Without those rivets, or if they're worn out on the inside, you're going to find it's going to be trying to change. Oh, am I on? Not quite yet. Oh, I've just hooked on. So really, you make sure those rivets are in good condition at the back, not worn out, and your chain is not worn out as well. If your chain starts to go over 0.5% or 0.6, 0.7% wear, then you're going to find that your changing will start to go slower. Also, your B-screw on the back derailleur, the distance between the top jockey wheel and the teeth on your cassette here, make sure that distance is correct, not too close or not too far away. Won't go into that, you can look that up yourself. That'll affect your gear change speed and efficiency, and also under torque. So the rear derailleur moves across fast enough, it's just up to the chain to catch and engage with the cassette teeth. Now, in all honesty, not once has the chain been dropped on the front derailleur, not outside nor inside, which is a testament to the fact that the derailleur does its job really well. It doesn't move, it's rock solid. Now, a big key to that is also make sure that the derailleur is the right height from the teeth on the largest chainring. If it's too high, then you increase your likelihood of dropping your chain over or under. One thing I notice is the wear the chain's putting on the inner plate of the front derailleur. I'll just put an insert of that so you can see. So I would say that's due to the fact that the coating on the derailleur is not as hard as other derailleurs. So Shimano is a very hard coating and it tends to slip through. This one's sort of wearing that surface away. I don't think it's going to wear a hole or snap it in half very quickly, but it's just, you can see the marks there. This Ultegra front derailleur, which has more mileage on it, shows less wear on its inner plate compared to the Wheeltop. And it's due to this plastic skid plate that Shimano put on their front derailleurs. Maybe Wheeltop could look into putting a similar extra insert onto their front derailleur to reduce the wear. Now, this Wheeltop system has cross-chain protection. That means it won't allow your chain to go on a small chainring at the same time that you're on one of the two smallest sprockets on the rear, because that way your chain will be kinked like that. Now, that's all very good, except being on the big chainring and the big sprocket at the back does exactly the same thing with the twist of the chain. It's not good. When Wheeltop allows this system allows it to happen. So it's a bit of a negative thing in that if you can avoid it, don't go on your big chainring and the big sprocket at the rear. Even though this system allows it, it's not a good thing to do. When cross-chaining to the extremes, your chain takes on this shape and results in excessive lateral wear at these points. On the drivetrain, the chain's points of excessive wear are at the exit off of the rear sprocket here and the entry to your chainring here. So in your small chainring to the small sprocket at the rear, the stress points are here, And on your big chainring to the big sprocket of the rear, the stress points are here and here. Over a period of time, one of the outer plates wriggles itself off of the pin and the chain breaks at that link. Not the sort of thing you want to happen if you're off your saddle going up a hill or sprinting. Another side effect of cross-chaining on your small chainring and the small sprocket at the rear is it causes the chain to impinge on the inner face of the large chainring, causing unnecessary noise and wear. So hopefully Wheeltop will bring out the big cross-chain protection in a future update of their app. At the charging ports for the front and rear derailleur, you've got little dust caps, little rubber dust caps. You open them, charge it up. Now that flap on the front one closes quite nicely, but on the rear one, you try and close it and it just comes open again. So hopefully Wheeltop will fix that up, make it better. The front one's fine, it's just the rear one doesn't close properly, it stays open. I don't think it's going to affect the waterproofing. That's under the dust cap on the mechanism itself. The dust cap's only there to make it look good and to protect the contacts from corrosion. Here's a handy hint. After I wash my bike, I open the dust caps and let them air out for a little while, just in case some moisture did find its way underneath and onto the electrical contacts. Then once they look dry, put the dust caps back in place. The charging cable, 2 meters long, so if you're a fair distance away from your electricity outlet plug, then no problem, you've got 2 meters to play with. The other thing is, in the charger, it will work with any 5-volt adapter. This is from my Android phone, and it works perfectly fine. I've also used a low amperage one, not an adapter, but in the wall. They come in electricity, those, when you've got 4 or 6 things in the line, the outlets, and it's got a USB thing in there, they're usually lower amperage, and it works fine. We've been using that as well. Little red light comes on, says it's charging, but if you bump the wire a little bit too much, it can come disconnected quite easily and it won't be charging. So you go and use your bike the next day and you've got no charge. So make sure that little red light stays on. Your wire is fairly well away from any source where you can move it. Another question is, how long do the batteries last? When you think about it, you change your rear derailleur about 18 to 20 times more than you do your front derailleur. Probably in the hills when you're going up and down, you use your front derailleur a little bit more. But by far the majority, you use your rear derailleur in changing. So I recorded the amount of battery charge in the rear and front derailleurs and also the shift levers after every ride. I ride 3 times a week, so that's about 12 rides a month. I've had this Wheeltop TX system for well over 3 months now, and this is what happened to the battery charges. I plotted all those charge figures on a graph, and you can see that it's the rear derailleur that discharges the quickest. At this point here, it's 25% charge left in the rear derailleur, and I didn't want to get stuck out on a ride with a non-functioning rear derailleur, so I took 25% as needing to be recharged. So the rear derailleur discharges quicker than the front derailleur, and the shifters very slow indeed. After all, the shifters don't need to move a motor to change a gear, they only send a signal. The distances ridden I worked out from my Strava, and so it seems the rear derailleur needs recharging at just over every 1,000 kilometres. By extending the front derailleur discharge line, we can extrapolate that it would reach its 25% charge at about 1,780 kilometres. So, by my estimates, your rear derailleur should go at least 1,100 kilometres and your front derailleur 1,700 kilometres before needing a recharge. If ever in the whole life you had the Wheeltop system on your bike that the battery fails you, Wheeltop will replace it, undo the screws, put the new one back on, screw it up, and you're right, Bob's your uncle. However, that should never happen. Now, I haven't found any slackness in the parallelogram on the front or the rear derailleur yet, and even though I had the bike fall over in the wind at the cafe and it fell on the rear derailleur, bugger. I would have got some footage of how bad the hanger was bent, but I was more concerned about bending it back enough so that the gears worked and I could get home, which I did. Once I was home, I could straighten the hanger properly. The bike fell pretty much bang square on the rear derailleur, and I was expecting a big gouge, but instead it was a dull scratch patch. And the jockey wheels are still really smooth, and there's no slackness there either, so really good. So at this point in time, the rear derailleur certainly has proved to be very hardy. The brakes going just fine. Very easy to set up for the hydraulics. If you're scared of hydraulics, good way to start is with Wheeltop ones, because it's very easy to get the air out the system and they work really well very quickly. Now I wondered how strong these brakes were compared to Shimano ones. So what I did was I took out the brake pads and swapped them over with Shimano pads. So Wheeltop caliper with the Shimano pads from my Canyon bike, and then tried the brakes out for a couple of rides, and then tried the Canyon out with the Wheeltop pads in those Shimano calipers, and then put them back in again. So the conclusion is the Wheeltop pads are not quite as grippy as the Shimano brake pads, however still very, very good. And as for the calipers themselves, no problems whatsoever, just as powerful as Shimano Ultegras, and even the feel or modulation is indistinguishable from the Ultegras. So these calipers will take Shimano brake pads or any aftermarket ones that fit Shimano calipers. So that's a good thing. You can either use Wheeltop ones or Shimano when you need to replace them. Now if you press me for an issue with these calipers, the only thing I can say is they look aesthetically just a little bit bulkier than Shimano and the SRAM ones. However, in saying that, keep an eye out, because in the groups coming up, Wheeltop are going to include their new caliper coming out, which looks really, really nice. One advantage of having the Wheeltop system on a rim brake bike is it'll clear up your front area a little bit. You'll have 2 less cables coming out. You don't need any gear cables, so you probably have 2 brake cables, that's it. Also, if they have any holes in your frame where you had gear wires before, just put some rubber plugs in them, no problem. So making your rim brake bike look simpler, and also having electronic gears, bringing your rim brake bike up to date to 2025. The one common gripe is the Wheeltop system is difficult to set up initially, and it's true, initially it is, because you're learning something new. However, once you get familiar with the app and how things work, it's actually quite intuitive and simple. So the first step, once you take the gear system out of the box, it may already be paired up. You don't have to worry about that step. If it's not, follow the instructions to pair the rear derailleur, front derailleur and your shifters all up. No problem, easy done. Second step is pair the whole system up to the app on your device that you've got. So you download the app and pair it up. Step 3 is go through the rear derailleur, make sure the distance between your sprockets is correct in the app. You can change that, get familiar with it, have a fiddle around, have fun as well. Take your time, get to know it, and then you'll be right. And once you've got that all set up, it's not going to change, it's going to stay very stable. And that's the way I've found. I've not needed to change anything. One quirky thing to remember when you're adjusting in the app, the distance between your sprockets here, when you do change a sprocket, a new number, the rear derailleur won't recognize that number until you move off of that sprocket, either up or down, and come back to that sprocket that you adjusted. And then it has the new number in its brain. What if you need a spare part or parts for your Wheeltop system? Well, whatever is not Shimano compatible, like your jockey wheels and brake pads, etc., you can also buy from Wheeltop themselves. Say you have an accident and you want to buy a lever hood or 2 lever hoods, probably come in a pair. Well, Wheeltop will be able to help you out there. If they can't help you, guess what? There is a third-party online Wheeltop parts supplier. I'll put the link in the description below. If that doesn't help you, how about AliExpress? I've seen the parts on there, separate parts on AliExpress. Maybe not all of them, but quite a few. So you should be able to source what you want from somewhere, and it's only going to get better as Wheeltop gets more popular. I just thought I'd let you know, just before I finish up with the video, I've now almost done 4,000 kilometers. 30,920 I think was on Strava, so almost there. So just to let you know before I upload the video. Take this off. Oh, that's better. Bad hair. So how did it go? Well, it's still going absolutely flawless. Really, really nice. One of the questions a lot of the riders ask is, where does it say Wheeltop on there? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't say Wheeltop on the rear derailleur, front derailleur or the shifters. It says TX, and you can hardly see that either. So really, so aesthetically, it's a little bit on the boring side, just being a plain, very dark grey or black colour. Nothing special, no showy logos, but it's still really, really hardy. That's what I like about it. It just does what it's supposed to do. One of our riders has got the new SRAM Red on his bike, and he's got a little rattle in his right hand lever. He's actually inserted a little bit cut off from an ice cream container and a little bit of plastic to stop it from rattling. He says, I don't know where the rattle's coming from in the lever. Oh, I don't want to pull it apart. It's true, you don't want to pull it apart. Anyway, he's got this rattle he's got to get rid of in the new SRAM Red. On a Canyon too.
Yeah.
That's not like Canyon. Oh.
You leave enough on there so you can pull it out if you want to get rid of it. It's got a sticky back on it so it stays in there.
And it's also known, if you don't already know, Shimano levers quite often they develop a bit of a rattle. Not all of them, but just some of them sometimes. I'm not sure exactly what that is. Anyhow, I can tell you now there's no rattles in these ones. Well, not in mine anyway. So that's no problem whatsoever. No rattles in the smooth, quick changing, no problems, even though I'm using a Connex chain on the Shimano cassette. When I said earlier in the video to use the Shimano chain, which of course, yeah, if you want the ultimate smoothness, but I like the Connex chain because the link comes with it and the link lasts for the life of the chain because I wax my chain going there again. So no problem there with the changing. The weight, well, the weight of all four components is about the same as old Tegra, and likewise with the SRAM group set, whatever that is, Rival or something like that, very, very on par with the weight. The braking, absolutely fine. I actually took the Shimano's out and put the Wheeltop pads back in again because they're absolutely fine. The Shimano one's a little bit more grippy, just a little bit more bitey, but hardly noticeable whatsoever. So Wheeltops are fine. When they wear out, then I might put Shimano's back in. So no problems with the Wheeltop brake pads. The hood's still perfectly fine, not coming loose like Shimano ones after 4,000 Ks, and there's no signs of wear and tear on them as yet anyway. So the other thing is they're still very, very comfortable. Most of the time I ride without gloves in summertime. I don't like gloves. Sometimes if we ride some really rough surfaces, I will, but otherwise, I can't be bothered. I just ride with no gloves, and I can find I can ride 110, 120 Ks with no gloves, no problem. One thing I really like about the Wheeltop system is you can personalise the gear paddles. So I've got my right hand larger one going up the cassette and the other one, the small one at the front, going down, and of course my left hand one just for the front derailleur. You can configure yours however you want, which is a great feature for this Wheeltop system. Good battery life. I'm almost up to the 4th recharge now, and it's pretty much the same as Shimano recharging, about the same time. Maybe Shimano might last a teeny bit longer, I don't know, but it's easy, just whack on the cords and charge them up. Because the two big features of the Wheeltop system by far is the fact that you can put it on a disc brake or a rim brake bike. And the rear cassette, you can have any speed you want up to 14 speed. So 11, 12, 13 or 14 speed. And that's great because anytime the big brands change their number of speeds on the back, you can keep up with them. Without discussing any prices, because it varies from whichever region you live in the world, and also whether Wheeltop are having a sale or not and things like that. However, I can tell you in the description below, and I'll pin it to the top of the comments there, the discount code. So go there because you get an extra discount on whatever is quoted on the Wheeltop site. Whatever you can get it for, you get even more discount. I think it's 5, 8 or 10%. I'm not sure what they put it down to, but anyway, it's a definite discount. Righto, time to have a shower. See you on the road if you're riding up this way. It's a cold morning. It's 6.7 degrees. Cold enough. The thick gloves on. It's a little bit wet this morning. The electronic group set, Wheeltop